Okay, Max.
Hey, hi everyone. Uh,
Hi.
welcoming Malcolm. I'm welcoming Courtney. It's Courtney on health after all. But just a little, little intro here to get stuff a little bubbling in this holiday time because tis the season to be jolly. And kind of even though we're in smaller groups, mostly our immediate family, it's important we eat immunity building foods because we are in COVID times. I mean, that's actually a phrase. And it's important also to have some fun. We can eat foods that give us some comfort and joy. There's a song called Comfort and Joy. And maybe we can sip into some holiday cocktails to help us get us through the shorter days and longer nights as we kind of follow Santa on Zoom and sit by the fireplace. Or if you don't have a fireplace, a big screen TV with a video loop of a roaring fire, like they have the WPIX Yule log here in New York. And it's all across the country. There's WDCW in Washington and WGN in Chicago. I used to watch it as a kid in Brooklyn because who had a fireplace? So, but back to health and diet. Our question to Courtney today is this: what are some immune building foods we can prepare for the holiday season or any season? And what are some fun foods, that we can touch on later for the holidays?
All right. Well, happy holidays to
Happy holiday.
And so we'll talk about those foods. It's not an exhaustive list, but it's those foods that are at the top of the list of having the best studies supporting how they help your body's immune system function best. So I will leave it up to everybody to decide how to incorporate them, but I'll give you certainly some suggestions. So many people know that the wide color that exists in a lot of our berries and citrus, so blackberries, blueberries, raspberries, any of the oranges that are available now, so navel oranges, clementines, these are all packed with antioxidants. The color drives the type of antioxidants, so as long as you like all of them, including all of them is the best way to go. Vitamin C is found in a lot of different foods, but we know, and a very common one would be our citrus family, like lemons and limes and oranges. And we happen to be, at least, eat seasonally is always a great idea. A lot of oranges available to us right now.
Yeah. Courtney, let me interrupt you for a minute. You mentioned the word antioxidant, which is always bandied around. What exactly is an antioxidant?
It's your, think of sort of like a Pac-Man that cruise through your body that's picking up some of the nasty stuff that's in there. So against oxidant oxidation. So those things that are causing free radical oxidation in your body. So it does get thrown around a lot. I've heard it mispronounced as antitoxin. That's not what we're talking about. Which is fine. So it's an umbrella word for compounds that are moving through your body to reduce the amount of free radical oxidation. Certain foods are higher than others. There are foods that contain things called polyphenols, which is just a fancy name for the wide variety of plant compounds that exist. So that's why you want to try and have as much as, without making yourself bananas over it, a wider variety of foods so that you've got the best access to all of those different compounds, including antioxidants in the mix. So the berries, the citrus, the unsung hero in the mix would be the mushroom, different types of mushroom. It used to be that the mushroom was just considered a great quote unquote dieter's food because it was thought to be, very low in calories, which of course it is, but also devoid of any nutritional value. Well, fast forward now to 2020, we know that it still is low in calories, but it is packed with compounds that help build immunity. They're called beta glucans. So if you like them, ways to incorporate them: omelets, soups, stews. They are very warm, nurturing types of foods, and they're a great way to incorporate almost any type of mushroom into the diet. Ginger, garlic, actually anything in the allium family, so scallions, onions, garlic, have been known to be very helpful with fighting inflammation, particularly ginger. We're hearing a lot about ginger now, ginger and turmeric, which is a spice. We don't use it a ton in the United States. It's gaining a lot of traction. It's more often used in sort of Indian, Asian type of cuisine, but more and more people are using it because of its amount of curcumin. That's actually the active compound that's in there. Very potent anti-inflammatory compound, which you want in your body because you want to reduce the amount of inflammation that's been linked to various diseases like stroke, cardiovascular disease, diabetes.
Yeah, I love ginger when we go to sushi bars. And the thin sliced ginger.
You can have it that way. I mean, some people, it's a little bit of it's an intimidating, rhizome for people because they don't know really what to do with it. Here's my quick tip for it. If you buy it, it's mostly sold in big pieces like this. So sometimes you're only using a small, like 1/4-inch piece, of the ginger root, and then what do you do with it? So rather than let it rot inside your veggie drawer in your refrigerator, put it in a Ziploc bag or some kind of container and stick it in your freezer, and it can live there for a really long time for the next time that you need it. So that way it reduces waste and you have it on hand next time you need it. It's great in smoothies, again, in soups and certain salads, very vegetarian dishes. So if you're using tempeh or tofu, it has wonderful pungent flavor to the mix. Our greens, broccoli, kale, spinach, the amount of flavonoid content, which again is another one of those plant chemicals, in each of these is very, very high. Brussels sprouts. So think anything in that cruciferous vegetable family, cauliflower, Brussels sprouts, broccoli, very strong anti-cancer compounds. And those compounds that help with things like vision, like lutein. So various ways to incorporate them. So even if you don't like one, like you can't stand broccoli or Brussels sprouts, well, maybe you like kale or spinach instead. So you mix that into smoothies. Find ones that you like and incorporate them without having to make it an unpleasant experience. You need to like your food. It needs to taste good, right? So you need to, find a way to make it work for you and your family.
Right. What I found, I come from a traditionally Jewish household. And when my mother would make all the spinach or the asparagus, or she would always overdo it. And when you would eat it, it would just smush in your mouth and have no taste.
Yeah, yummy.
I remember then when I got older and I went to other people's households and they served it raw. And you put a little sauce on it and have it raw, and it was delicious. And to this day I love it, just to chew on with raw, not cooked at all.
Okay, but so if you like it that way, that's fantastic. But some people really have a hard time with palatability of raw vegetables, so sometimes you got to give it a little bit of help. I always say high heat with a little bit of fat, like olive oil, is a great way. Roasting vegetables simply transforms them into a completely different food. So if you can't stand broccoli or Brussels sprouts, high heat, 400 degrees, a little bit of olive oil, tiny bit of salt and pepper, roast them. It caramelizes the natural occurring sugars that are in the food, and it makes them much more palatable. And I've converted many a Brussels sprouts hater into lovers after trying cooking it that way.
Now let's get to reality. We're going to be partying for probably starting Christmas, going through New Year's. What are the feel-good foods that we could have, the ones that are not necessarily as healthy for you, but is not destructive to you?
Okay, so firstly, I'm very practical based on the science that's available to us, and pretty much you can eat whatever you really would like, providing it's not a huge amount of it. So if there's a favorite cultural food, traditional food that you're used to having this time of year, you can absolutely still have it, maybe just rein back in on how much. So don't overindulge in it. So if it's your favorite cheesecake or your favorite recipe or the brisket that you love, nobody believes that these foods are healthy for us, but also they're part of our tradition, and we don't want to monkey with that too much. Food is love, and we need to maintain that. So the general recommendation is just, get by with a little bit less than what you maybe normally would have, and enjoy it. Savor the food as you're eating it. So that's for those foods that we really, really know are not necessarily going to be the most, healthy for us. There is some good news about foods that we may love that are actually really good for us, namely dark chocolate. So all chocolate comes from cacao, not cocoa, cacao, and it's just varying degrees of how much it's fermented and processed down. So you can get cacao in its most unprocessed form and anywhere. Use it with your, if you're going to bake, you can mix it into smoothies. It's a great way to incorporate it in just the powdered form. But even good old, semi-sweet or bittersweet chocolate chips or dark chocolate. One serving of that dark chocolate a day has been linked to lowering blood pressure. So once again, not the whole bag of Hershey Kisses or Hershey chocolate, but visually think about 2 to 3 Hershey Kisses roughly to give you a visual of a serving size of dark chocolate. And what I mean by that is the higher the better the percentage. So you want to look for those types of chocolate that have 60% or higher. Some people really can't hack the 90% cacao because it's quite bitter. But again, the higher the better in terms of the amount of that very potent antioxidant that exists that might actually help lower your blood pressure.
Now, I don't know whether this is true or not, but I know personally, I know people who can say, I'll take a one chocolate chip cookie, or I'll take a bite of the ice cream. I sort of have, if I take something sweet like that with the chocolate or the cake, it sort of throws in my body, I have a desire for it. Is this psychologically, or does the body, am I allergic to the sweets that I demand more and more? I can't just take a teaspoon. I almost have to finish the pint, or I almost have to, take 3 or 4 chocolate chip cookies. Again, is this psychological or is it physiological?
Likelihood is probably both of those. I mean, an allergy would be a little bit different. So let's bench that just for the moment, because that's a different response. But let's face it, salty foods, sweet foods, they trigger, we were talking about endorphins and all of those feel-good hormones. There's something to be said about tasting something that's that satisfying to you. So I have no doubt that it's, oh my gosh, this is so great, I got to have more of it. So in that case, it would be, maybe walk away. Don't have the whole platter in front of you. Take what you want, small amount, and remove yourself from the source of that food. And sometimes that does the trick. Also, and I say this a lot about, fresh fruit a lot of the time is a great way to, satisfy a sweet tooth without necessarily, getting into too much trouble. But I do realize that having a, bowl of berries is not quite the same as, digging into several chocolate chip cookies.
Well, Courtney, there's 2 things that I have in the holidays usually, and they have 2 things that you didn't mention one, but one is gingerbread, and that's ginger. You mentioned ginger. The other is eggnog. So what about those 2? I mean, is it, and then, is it bad, good? I guess overindulging is not the thing, but I love gingerbread cookies or cake. I love that stuff.
Yeah, I'm with you, Maxine. I'm a gingerbread fan, not necessarily a chocolate per se fan. So yeah, I mean, is gingerbread healthier than a slice of cheesecake because it has the, this anti-inflammatory ginger in it? I think that's open for a little bit of discussion, but it's what you want. And you may tolerate it a little bit better. You may feel more satisfied after eating it because it tastes good to you. And if you're going to eat less of it because you're getting that much satisfaction out of it, well, then that's a good thing. The eggnog, we talking with bourbon, without bourbon, or
It's got to be with bourbon, because then that's gonna lead into maybe holiday cocktails. I'd have the bourbon.
Absolutely.
What about drinking during these holidays? I think a lot of people are going to be drinking out the year. So
yeah, certainly not a time to overindulge in anything, whether it be food or any type of substance abuse. So all kidding aside, we certainly want to condone, excessive drinking. However, moderate amounts of drinking are perfectly fine. So there's lots of things we know about red wine. It's called resveratrol, is the compound that's been isolated in red wine. It's also in grape juice, a little bit in cranberry juice. So you don't have to drink red wine per se to get it. But when you hear about the studies of red wine and reducing disease risk, that in particular is the compound that they might be talking about. So, certainly in moderation, but you got to have some fun too. So I thought a fun cocktail of the, of the season might be in order. And I find them tasty. You can make them with alcohol or without, but typically it's called a poinsettia. It's typically made with either champagne or I like Prosecco because it's a little bit lighter. It's certainly easier on the budget because it's not nearly as expensive as champagne. And it's a super easy, you know, recipe to follow. You can do it with ice or without. So you can do 1 part of the Prosecco. This happens to be unsweetened cranberry juice. So if you've ever had it, you will know it's unsweetened because it is very, very bitter. So you can certainly have the sweetened one, but some people might find that they are just fine with the unsweetened cranberry juice. Once again, we come back to those foods that most people hear about cranberry juice being helpful for, you know, urinary tract infections. It creates sort of an, you know, a nasty environment for bacteria. So a good thing. You put a splash of that in here. You have any kind of orange liqueur that's available, and there's lots of different brands, and you can put a splash of that in the mix. You'd want everything to be on the cold side, so that if you don't add any ice to it, it's got a nice cold, fresh, refreshing flavor to it. This just happens to be a sprig of rosemary and then some fresh cranberries in the mix. You can throw that in there to be super pretty. And cheers. I will taste it to make sure, and I will attest it's quite good.
Well, I'm gonna just throw a quick one in. I have something called Screwball. It's a peanut butter liqueur, whiskey actually. And so you put in, like, my friend says 3 seconds, but God only knows. And I just put a little bit. And you put in some, this is Nutson's organic grape juice, which you put a little of that in. And usually ice. And then I don't have it, but you could put the rim with some Concord grape jelly. And when you taste this, it's like having a peanut butter and jelly sandwich in a glass. And it makes you happy.
Guys, under that note, we have to say goodbye.
So I'm going to say happy, healthy New Year and happy Merry Christmas.
For the New Year, well, happy Merry Christmas and whatever other holidays are there. But now I have an interesting problem. My cursor is not working. My cursor is not working. I can't end the show.
So we can all leave.
I'm not sure what I could do. I'm going to say goodbye, and I'm just going to have to edit.
Happy holidays, all good things in the new year. Cheers.
Okay,
Catch
cheers.
you in the new year.
Thanks.